Secretary Byrd, there have been a variety of attacks levied against House Republicans for advocating for election integrity, which includes preventing non-citizen voting. And they are based on non-citizen voting already being illegal. Just because non-citizen voting is illegal doesn't mean that it can't occur, and we must be vigilant in ensuring the strength of our laws. House Rule 10, Clause 2, lays out the general oversight responsibilities of the standing committees to analyze, quote, the application, administration, execution, and effectiveness of federal laws, end quote. And also, quote, conditions and circumstances that may indicate the necessity or desirability of enacting new or additional legislation, end quote. Secretary Byrd, very simply, is it possible for non-citizens to illegally vote in federal elections?
It is.
And do you have examples of this occurring?
We do. I mentioned the 2 individuals in Florida who've been recently arrested and charged with illegally attempting to vote in Florida elections.
And both of those situations occurred after Congress made it illegal for non-citizens to vote, correct?
That is correct.
Do you think Congress should consider legislation such as the SAVE Act to close the gaps which allow non-citizens voting?
It is absolutely critical.
Okay. Is amending the NVRA an important first step?
The NVRA must be amended.
And can states, when administering services such as social and medical benefits, impact either intentionally or unintentionally the federal prohibition on non-citizens votings?
Yes.
Okay. Ms. Mitchell, I want to ask you about President Biden's Executive Order 14019 on promoting access to voting. Can you speak to some of the concerns with this executive order?
Absolutely. First of all, I believe that it's unconstitutional. But having said that, why is it that the Biden administration has absolutely resisted every effort to turn over any of the plans by any of the agencies? The House Committee on Administration issued subpoenas in July to every cabinet secretary and have asking for the plans for implementing Executive Order 14019. And not a single agency plan has been turned over to the House Administration Committee. And I included in my written testimony a file from a whistleblower who sent to me. He is a U.S. Marshal, and he sent the Department of Justice guidelines, instructions to all the U.S. Marshals, requiring them, notifying them that they are required to offer voter registration materials and voter education materials to everyone with whom they come into contact, including, and he sent me a file of someone who had to be registered to vote, who is a prisoner in a Texas federal facility. He's imprisoned for violating federal law because he was deported and returned. He's a Mexican citizen. It says that in his file, and he was registered to vote, and they're required to give him voter registration materials. That is happening in federal prisons all over the country.
So let me ask you, then, is it your understanding that they are actually implementing the very plans that they refuse to turn over to Congress?
They're absolutely doing that, and we only know, we get bits and snatches from people, from whistleblowers and from various sources, but nothing official. And if you want to know the most, you go to the Demos website, which is a left-wing organization, and they have literally been dispatched by the White House to federal agencies to help them implement this plan. They know more about what's going on in these agencies to implement this executive order than any member of Congress.
Are they involved with implementing the executive order?
Yes, they are.
And are they in compliance with FACA or the Federal Advisory Committee Act?
No, they are not. No, they are not.
So they're violating FACA.
They are violating that. Yes, they are. And they brag about all the agencies that they have assisted over the last 3 years with implementing the executive order.
This executive order obviously involves these various federal agencies in the voting process. And besides the concern that these agencies do not have expertise in this area, should the American people be concerned that this will be administered by politically appointed officials of the Biden-Harris administration?
Well, absolutely, because the original executive order required that every plan had to be submitted to the White House, to the director of the Office of Domestic Policy, which at the time was held by Susan Rice. And it also goes on to say that federal funds and grants will be disseminated through the White House by the Office of Domestic Policy, by Susan Rice, and we do not know to this day Who got the grants, how much they got, we know nothing about that.
So in terms of these plans, were they all submitted to the White House for review?
We presume that they were, because they were directed to do that, but
And they're
we
being,
don't know.
And they're being implemented as we speak.
They are being
But
implemented.
we as
we speak.
Congress have not been able to get our hands on the documents.
Not a single document.
I guess I have a question. Why would they want to hide this information?
That's a good question.
I yield back.